Hey there friends, Dave Paulides, canammissing project, and this is Huck L. Berry. That's her picture. She's the executive producer. Hey Huck, you want to say hi to everybody? Huh? Yeah? Yeah? You're a good girl. You're a good girl. Oh, that's a good puppy. Yes, you're a good girl. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, you're so pretty. Yes, you're so pretty. And so soft too. This area of her head, from here to right about right here, it is just so soft. And then it starts getting all tough, like a tough girl, right? Yeah, you good girl. All right, folks. That poster means a lot right now. American Sasquatch. The trailer is right here on our channel. Movie comes out December 1st, and it's going to be a biggie. Several people have seen an early copy of it. Rave reviews. I'm very happy with what this early group has said. If you want to see it, Tacoma Convention Center, Tacoma, Washington, Black Friday, November 28th, day after Thanksgiving. Start about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Be there, join us, get tickets at missing411.com. And you can watch, like I said, the trailer is there as well. We're going to, before I get into it, got to show you something that Tim and Tracy gave me. Check this out. Pretty cool, right? I liked it. Tim and Tracy, very thoughtful. Thank you very much. And we have our other Huck L. Berry glassware. Yeah, that's you, Huck. She heard me say that. She came over here and says, "Hey, Dad, that's me, huh?" Yeah, that's you. Talk about something before we talk about the missing case for today. This is going way back, maybe 20 years ago. One of the preeminent crop circle researchers in the world was in San Francisco. I got tickets, I went and saw him because I was interested. There were a lot of rumors that crop circles are done by people, and some are. There were rumors that they're done by some type of intelligence that we don't understand, and they are. And when I went in and I listened to this man who had been doing it for decades in Europe, traveled all over Europe, researching and understanding, and after I walked out of there, I truly understood what the difference was between man-made and others. One of the things in the others side is that many of the ones done by something else, when the wheat or the plants are bent down to make the crop circle, they're not broke. Yet when people do them, the shaft gets broken. Many times there's an energy in that crop circle that just cannot be explained. Now, he showed a series of photos. And he said, if you really look hard, you can tell the difference between man-made and others by the finite differences in the perfection of the circle or the design. Well, I told you before that Nexus magazine, great magazine. There's an article this month in it that talks about crop circles in 2025. It turns out that there weren't that many crop circles in 2025 compared to past years. And it says the claimed rise of new amateur circle makers brought rise to a new question. With so few crop circles in general in this new norm, why are the less obvious circle makers, whoever or whatever they are, extraterrestrial, extra-dimensional, psychic or natural forces, or such a go-glow? There were just 19 formations worldwide this summer. Slightly up from 2024 at least, but not by many. Will the circles be replaced by something else in a widely paranormal area? Well, that's a good question. Now, when I say you have to really look sometimes, this was a crop circle that was done. Kind of a Joker face. That was done by people. And when you look at that, it looks pretty defined, pretty equal. But what you need to do sometimes is you need to take a picture of it from the sky, open it up wide, and measure point to point to point. Put a line down the middle and measure the points from the middle line to the outer ends. And what you're looking for is equality on each side. The ones that are done by, let's just say, extraterrestrials are absolutely perfect. Humans really can't do that. Not with the time that it would normally take to do these. Now, on the opposite end of the scale, I want you to look at another crop circle that is an extraterrestrial, probably. This one here. Now, circles are overlaid on one another. The distances between these are absolutely perfect all the way around. The distance, if you draw a line down the middle, from this to the outskirts, from this to the outskirts, are absolutely perfect. Everything geometrically is perfect. Again, you can't get that out of a human design. Probably one of the best ones I've seen in the last several years, and they agreed that this one had to be this one here. This one, you have a series of rectangles on the outer perimeter. On the inner, you have a circle. You have triangles. And all of the interdimensional measurements, point to point, are equal distance. Friends, that is almost, I would say that's impossible to do in the 8-9 hours if somebody had the time to do it during night hours. This was done by something else out of this world. And the way they described this one is perhaps the most immediately impressive event of the year occurred on July 20th in Germany at the Bavarian village of Frieding near Andex in the Stramberg district of Germany. Was once a busy place for crop formations, but like most of the rest of the world, now only activates here and there. Resembling something like an old spiked sea mine or a 10-pronged nanotech virus seen in 3D, the whole was contained within a ring of Mayan-looking rectangular circles, like the pinnacle of a Wiltshire formation before it. The lay around the central motif radiated a shimmering halo. Absolutely epic design. Epic. Now, why do I tell you that? Well, for starters, I'm always interested in the unexplained. Now, when I saw this man in San Francisco, I actually don't remember his name. He showed people out in the field making a design that was pretty complex. And he went along with them, and they agreed to show him, and it was understandable how they did it. It was a board with a rope and they slowly pushed the board in front of them and knocked down the wheat or whatever the growth was. But they would have to have laser measurements to do these complex designs. They would have to have dozens of people participating to get it done in the right period of time. And then to get the arches and the circles, very complex. And he went around and he explained that, yeah, many of these back then were done by people. And even today, some of these people that are doing this do it for fun, to see how complex they can get and how many people they can fool. But realistically, if you put a drone up over this, say 500 feet, you take a picture with a very high resolution camera and blow it up, and like I said, measure it, you can tell real quickly what is and what isn't. And then when you get down and you look at the damage or no damage to the crop, you can tell. So anyhow, that's my little thing about crop circles. I've only been in one. It was in Northern California, way up near Redding, Red Bluff, in the middle of the San Joaquin Valley. I get called out on it, and people knew I was interested. And I went out and checked for radiation, all those kind of things. There was nothing. But people have said that if you sit in the middle of them, you can feel energy that you don't feel other places. So I sat there. I was the only one there. Sat there half an hour, closed my eyes. It did feel a little different, I gotta tell you. There was nobody around. I don't think I was wanting to feel anything, but I think there was something there. Just saying, folks. All right. Today's case. How would I explain this? This is a class today. Yeah, let's call this a class. What do I mean by that? You're going to learn something on this case that I've never talked about or done on other cases. So, let's start off. This happened in an area I know super well. I lived right by it. The man's name was Edward Schlotfeldt, 29 years old, missing October 23rd, 1949. The location of the disappearance was Kenosha Pass in Park County, Colorado. So here's, right up here is Denver. I used to live in Morrison, Colorado. Morrison was just on the foothills of the Rockies, outside of the city. Beautiful area. This is Highway 285 right here. Goes up into the mountains. I circle Bailey right there because the Sasquatch Outpost is there. And Jim and Daphne Myers own it. And if you're ever going through Bailey, make sure you stop there. They are super nice people, and they've got a great shop. And they actually have some of my Bigfoot memorabilia in there. It's not memorabilia, it's tracks and things that were mine that are still there. Well, this incident happened in Kenosha Pass right here. Right where that X is. And friends, this gets very high in elevation, and I'll explain that to you soon. For you people that have lived around sea level your whole life, if you've never been to 10,000 feet and I tell you to run 100 yards, you won't believe. It's like somebody put a mask on you and you can't breathe. It's really strange the first time it happens. Well, he was a deer hunter. Edward was a deer hunter from Pueblo, Colorado, south of Colorado Springs. At the time of the disappearance on October 23rd, there was 5 inches of snow on the ground. The reason being is because he was so high in elevation. It never gets super warm up that high. Maybe in the summer for a few days, but very rare. Edward was married, had 2 small kids, and he was hunting with a friend, a physician named F.L. Shields of Colorado Springs. They both have hunted before together, knew each other. So Edward drove up, met the doctor. They drove up in their separate cars to the area of Kenosha Pass. And they established a camp. Some tents, campfire, everything you'd need. So when you came back at the end of the day, you could just light the fire, get some heat going, make some dinner, and get right to bed. Because people out there that if you don't know, if you want to be a really good hunter, you got to cover a lot of ground sometimes. 2 ways to hunt: cover a lot of ground, or sit in a stand, sit on your butt for 8-10 hours. And that's almost worse. That's way worse in my mind. I'd rather be hiking all over the mountains. When you're hiking all over the mountains and you're putting 8-10 miles on, up and down, at the end of the day, you want to eat food and go to bed. Well, the doctor came back. They had agreed to come back, have dinner together. It was getting dark early. Edward didn't show up. Doctor honked the horns on the cars, fired off 3 rounds. Thought he'd come in late that night. He didn't. So early the next morning, Edward still hadn't arrived. The doctor left to get the sheriffs. On October 24th, the Park County Sheriff Law, what a name for a sheriff, L-A-W, Sheriff Law. He comes back with some deputies from Park County, and they start looking, start searching. Well, when the Dr. Shields went into the city, he also called Edward's family and said what was happening. So they got word. The Park County Sheriffs come back to the scene and they start searching. That was on October 24th, Monday. So they got a pretty quick start. But they only had about a half a day, because after the physician went down, then they got the deputies together and made their way back. They only had a few hours. Didn't find much in that period of time. October 25th, a Tuesday, the people in Pueblo heard about what was happening through the family. And they got 9 local residents to come up and assist in the search. And the search was centered on 6 miles northeast of Jefferson, Colorado, off of 285. So as I explained to you, here's Kenosha Pass. There's Jefferson right there. They were just northeast of there. This kind of country up there, it can be pretty brutal. It's brutal just because you're up so high. And the weather changes there super quick. If you're not very careful, it can trap you and kill you. Well, these people came up there. They got there. They had about 3 or 4 hours to search. And they found some footprints that were leading towards Beaver Creek, which gave them some hope for the next day, October 26th. Edward's parents and his wife arrived, and they were joined by more deputies and more friends and fish and game personnel from the Fish and Game Association of Pueblo. So they had a pretty good staple of people up there looking. Plus this was hunting season, and they even got other hunters to help them look. It got into the low 20s at night. They said that Edward was pretty well dressed. October 27th, search continued. Very high elevation, tough on the searchers. October 28th, this time they started searching from the camp going out. And they found Edward's rifle not too far from his car. And it was also this morning that 5 U.S. Army soldiers joined, and they were now searching as well. There was a man named Charles Shoemate, who was the district supervisor for Colorado roads, and he was asked by the local sheriff if he'd fly his plane over the area looking to see if he could find somebody wandering aimlessly without a rifle, he said he would. And he flew that for 2 days. The footprints that they started to follow the other day, they slowly phased out, and nobody could explain why when the press inquired about that. They heard about the prints, everyone was optimistic, then suddenly there were no more to follow. And they couldn't understand that, especially since there was snow on the ground. Edward's parents were interviewed, and they said that they were concerned about his welfare because they knew he had a heart condition. And on the 28th, that Sheriff Law, he said he was ready to give up the search. It had been 4 tough days. They weren't finding anything other than these faded prints, tracks, that he wasn't sure if there might even have been another hunter. Except these footprints were huge. And Edward was known to have a big foot. That's what they said. Well, everyone kept searching. And on October 29th, the headlines of the local paper were Amnesia, a possibility on the disappearance. Oh, we know a little bit about amnesia. There's also a part of the article that talks about 3 individuals that were walking down a dirt road near Grant, saw a man wandering 3 days earlier, and he looked dazed, confused, and he didn't have anything in his hands. Well, the 3 people were young kids that lived on a ranch, and they weren't near their ranch house. And they didn't approach the man. They didn't even say anything, but they said that they didn't know that anyone was missing. So when they found out somebody was missing, they contacted the sheriff. He came out with some deputies and interviewed the kids. The kids gave a description of a white male, about 6'2", wearing a cowboy hat, red and black shirt, a lumberman type jacket, khaki colored pants, and hunting boots. The sheriff stated to the press that that was the exact description of Edward, the missing person. The kids said they never saw where the man ended up walking, just he was walking aimlessly down this dirt road. Sheriff sent searchers into that area. They found nothing. A multi-day search produced, up to this point, witnesses that saw him walking on the road, his rifle, some footprints in the snow that were lost, and at least a direction of travel on the road. Next day, October 30th, some people were camping about 10 miles from Kenosha Pass. And they knew that somebody was missing. And they found some .38 caliber casings laying on the ground that were fresh. They called the local rangers. They came out and recovered the casings and reported these to the local sheriff. And the sheriff thought that they might have belonged to Edward, because Edward was carrying a rifle and he was also carrying a pistol. October 31st, the sheriff announced that all searches would stop. I got to tell you, folks, 8 days. That's a long time for 1949 to search for anybody. Edward's parents, wife, and friends from Pueblo all went home. Forest rangers said that they normally patrol out in that area anyhow during hunting season to check permits and killings, etc. of deer. And they keep looking, just routinely. 5 days later, on November 5th, the Pueblo Fish and Game Association stated that they were making posters with Edward's photo, and they were going to put him up all around Park County, just in case Edward had amnesia. Some of the searchers that were involved believed that he was alive and possibly cooped up in a cattle camp somewhere in that area where he was last seen. So after you get off Kenosha Pass, there's a lot of big open range down there, cattle range. And there's a lot of big cattle locations where people move cows and have cattle camps. And if he stumbled into a house somewhere, they'd feed him, they'd take care of him. And if he wanted to work, they'd put him to work. And some of those places are pretty far off the grid. And for 1949, maybe they didn't know somebody was missing. So the thought was valid. November 6th, the next day, Edward's parents and his wife wrote a letter to the local paper, and they posted a very touching note thanking the sheriff, the searchers, the rangers for the extreme effort they went to try to find Edward. They said that nobody had any idea where he was. He left his car and rifle behind. In essence, it looked grim right there. Now, this is where I ask you to take a deep breath. A lot of times, this is kind of where we end this story. Nothing more to report. But friends, a lot of times these stories have a very unusual twist. And this is to let you know that these things really do happen. On November 12th, Mrs. Schlotfeldt talked to the press. She stated that 2 days earlier, on November 10th, she got a collect call, an anonymous call, from Deer Lodge, Montana, from a payphone. Deer Lodge, Montana. And the caller on the other end said, "It's me." She said that it was her husband. And she said that she thinks he's mentally ill. She said he asked about their 2 kids. And he offered no explanation on his disappearance or how he got to where he was at or what he was doing in Montana. Mrs. Schlotfeldt stated, "I don't even know anything other than he's alive." That's all she said. That's all the article stated at the time. November 13th, the next day, Edward called his wife again. This time from Baynesville, Montana, kind of near the North Dakota border. Mrs. Schlotfeldt stated that she will not follow her husband to Montana. And she explained that she is going to go out and get a job and support her children. You can only imagine the shock of getting a call like that from a spouse that you've kind of reconciled is probably dead. And then for the spouse to say, "I'm alive 2 states away. What are you doing there?" and offer no explanation. How would you react? Yeah. On December 17th, Mrs. Schlotfeldt filed for divorce. She said that her husband was now living under the name of Chet McLeod. Why would he change his name? Why? He was living 2 states away. This isn't like the 21st century where we've got internet and information, boom, 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 boom. It's 1949. Probably nobody even knows who he was. And now, this whole story is going to come to a culmination. The December 21st. Edward's dad was interviewed by the newspaper. And he explained that he talked to his son. And this is what he understood. Edward told his dad that the entire disappearance was prompted by extreme financial difficulties he had with his family. He was in financially over his head and he couldn't see a way out of it. Told his dad that he did go hunting with his physician friend, and he did get lost trying to find camp. He says he got really lost. And he said he wandered extensively for several days, lost his rifle. Said he eventually made his way to a dirt road. And this part sounds true because of what those kids said about seeing somebody walking aimlessly down a road. He said that he didn't see any residences around, which was true. The kids said there were no residences around. He said that a farmer was driving by, saw him, stopped, and gave him a ride. He said he eventually made it to Denver and got a ride to Billings, where some people told him that there was work in Red Deer. He said he ended up finding a ride to Red Deer, started working. He said he is trying to get back to Denver and eventually to Pueblo. Well, his folks live in Pueblo, so. Edward's wife, in her divorce proceedings, claimed that Edward had physically abused her. His dad said he adamantly denied it. There were also allegations that he had gambling debt and a girlfriend. And his dad said he adamantly denied both of those. His dad said that the first time he had heard from his son was December 18th, 3 days earlier. What would you make of all that? Now, first of all, the sheriff could not do anything to Edward. He didn't do anything wrong. Nothing illegal of anything he did. It's not illegal to fall out of society, run away from your wife, run away from your family. Morally, it's despicable. You're going to leave your wife and your kids with all that debt and your wife carrying that on her shoulders knowing she has to pay it off and you're not around to help? Despicable. But maybe his wife was right. Maybe he had mental illness. I still don't believe what he did was right. I'm sorry. I don't care, mental illness or not. You married your wife. You had those kids. Those are your responsibility. 100%. So, I tell you that story because this does happen more than people realize. I think many times, though, gambling debt and girlfriends or boyfriends play a role in why somebody disappears. He denied both. I read that story and I felt horrible for the wife and kids. I actually still felt horrible for his parents too. I mean, they're aged people going through all that. I'm sure they're trying to take care of their grandkids. Wow. Wow. All right. I won't do this to you again. I actually do this to you so you can look at missing person cases on the internet that you happen to come across. And don't always think that they're as pure and clean as they appear on their face. These days, I think that there are some missing person cases out there where people actually took their lives. Suicide rate is up. Mental health is a big concern. And we as a society, I wish we had more resources to address mental health. for people our age, young people, everyone. Thank you for being here. Kindness, really important. Really important. This is the kindness revolution. Be safe, be nice, be kind, and I want to remind you of one more thing. A friend of mine was saying the other day that he was driving down a dirt road out here in Montana, middle of nowhere. And he comes across two dogs standing at the corner of these two roads. There's nothing in sight, way out in the middle of nowhere. And he pulled up to them. They weren't wearing collars. They were friendly dogs. And he tried to get him into his car so he could take him home or take him to a shelter, get him some food, but they wouldn't get close enough to him so he could grab them. But he said they were friendly. I told him, you know what, that's a good soul. You tried to do the right thing. If you're out in the middle of nowhere and you see an abandoned dog or cat, do the right thing. Step up. Grab that thing. Put it in your car. Take it to a shelter if you don't feel you could take care of it. But at least get them food and water. Be safe. Be kind. Huck says arf arf. Paulides out.